Viewers and listeners, welcome to another edition of Blighty Talks Bricks. I've known this gentleman personally and properly for around 10 years, but I've known of him probably for 26, 7, 8 years. He fits into the criteria of the people we have on Blighty Talks Bricks, and that is in the respect that he is just one lovely human being. He's a lovely man to be around. He's great company, extremely knowledgeable and very passionate about the house building industry. Most of you will know his face and his voice because he's the face and the voice. He's a co-founder of the Show House magazine, but he's also been a presenter of the What House Awards, which I guess they are the equivalent of the BAFTAs, the Oscars of the property industry, particularly in house building. I think it'd also be fair to say that he's probably the face and the voice of the industry, full stop. Probably who he doesn't know is not worth knowing, to be perfectly honest. In terms of his professional skills, he's an impressive writer. He's a great person to interview, and he's done that with me in the past, and we've got a little turnaround of the tables today. So I'm really looking forward to my chat with Mr. Rupert Bates. Rupert, welcome.
Blighty, thank you so much. That's the nicest things you've ever said about me.
Well, that's very true, and you have promised me lunch, or have I promised you lunch? I couldn't remember, but I don't want to go to lunch with someone that's not going to be smiling. So, Rupert, right, seriously, everything I said I meant. It's lovely to see you. You've probably noticed, viewers, not if you're listening, but viewers, that today I'm wearing a Wolverhampton Wanderers shirt, and that's your football team?
It is Blighty, yes. It hasn't been my football team for very long before I get lots of abuse from people who've known me longer than that. But I mean, I love all sport. I've always loved sport. But my main sport has been rugby. I used to write about rugby a lot. And whilst I followed football, I didn't really have a passionate allegiance with any one team.
Okay.
But ironically, actually, it was the house building industry that saw me end up involved with Wolves.
How?
Well, it's a long story which I'll keep short. It was actually when we have whathouse.com, which is our new homes portal on the web, yep. And we're conscious we had a lot of sort of leverage and coverage in London and the South East. We wanted to move further north. We ended up talking with Leeds United, who were then in the Championship, about going back of shirt.
Right.
And literally the deal was about to be signed when I said to Daniel Hill, one of my fellow directors, who would be absolutely
Daniel will be saying, Blighty, why are you wearing a Wolverhampton Wanderers shirt? Well, we know the reason, Daniel.
Absolutely. No, he'd be appalled. We're about to do the deal, and I've cheekily, which not for the first time, but cheekily, obviously Steve Morgan, then the boss of Redrow, and obviously industry legend, was then the owner of Wolverhampton Wanderers, who were also had just been relegated to the Championship. So I thought I'd just send Steve a cheeky text saying, looking forward to seeing you at Molineux when Leeds United run out with What House on the back of the shirt. Literally no sooner had the text gone than the phone rings. Rupert, what you doing, mate? What you doing? You're not going on the back of Leeds United shirt. You're not. I'm coming down to London tomorrow. We're going to talk about Wolverhampton Wanderers, and the rest is history.
Is that true?
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So we ended up back of the shirt Wolves, and as you know, with Steve Morgan, to paraphrase that, I didn't get where I am today. He certainly didn't give away that sponsorship. It was full money, but it was great. And then suddenly I just got subsumed by the football. I'd always been a bit of a pompous rugby man, but liked my football. I took my then 6-year-old son up to Molineux, his first ever proper football game. Absolute wide-eyed, couldn't believe what he was seeing. And
the atmosphere at football matches is, I mean, I love my rugby like you, we're Quins fans, but the atmosphere at football it's different.
It was extraordinary. And just seeing his face, and so he became an absolute Wolves super fan. Our sponsorship did wonders. We led them down into League One, so it's back-to-back relegations. We joke that's quite good because we could afford League One.
A lot cheaper the further you went down.
A lot cheaper, yes. Yeah, so we actually punched the air when we went down because we thought we could probably afford another season. And so it's been great. So that sort of, I've still loved my rugby, but that set off a sort of football chain, really, because, and you'll really appreciate this, Blighty, because my younger daughter is an absolute Gooner, super Arsenal fan.
Is she?
But that was triggered.
So that's who I'm going to lunch with now. Then you're not coming. So you've just talked yourself out of a lunch here.
Exactly. But that was triggered. That was triggered by the women winning the Euros. Before that, she had no interest.
Really?
She's now 13, no interest in football. She then joined a team. She plays 5 days a week. Her room is a shrine. Her roommates, your sort of offices at Shrine look very poor compared to what's on her walls.
Right. Okay.
And so it's Arsenal women, Wolves men. And then my eldest is Brighton, which is near where I live. So there's 3 football teams. So it's quite complicated.
Well, there is a little bit of a string here attached to this shirt for me, because 3 minutes round the corner was my first primary school. And I always didn't do very well at school, but I loved sports, and I was always in the school team. And I used to play left back. But our strip was actually this gold. Didn't have a logo on it and sponsors on it, obviously, but... and I played left back, and my dad, bless him, used to let me stay up on a Tuesday night for sports night, which, I mean, TV football coverage was very different back in those days, just purely and simply just to get in the mood so I could wear my school shirt. So this colour is quite fond. Doesn't look great on me, mind you, not many colours do, but this doesn't look great on me. But so I'm wearing this, and thank you for coming.
No, absolutely.
And I appreciate you're busy, and I appreciate you've got an awards gig to go to tonight. But I just want to have a general chat to you. So I know you're an impressive writer. I know you used to write, you was a rugby correspondent. I know you've been in Field magazine. I know that your history is fantastic, what's behind you. How did you end up in this industry, the house building industry?
Yeah, again, well, actually, it goes back. I started my life as a sort of cub reporter on the Newbury Weekly News in Berkshire. That's where I sort of first cut my teeth. And the only reason I ended up in property was my father, my dear late father, God bless him, he was a local estate agent.
Was he?
And the guy who used to write the property column, had written it for about 100 years, finally retired. So the editor, booming voice across the newsroom, realised we need someone to write about property. So he goes, Bates, your father's an estate agent, you can do the property column, which, more work, no more money, more work. And I thought, oh, God. And I thought, okay, and this is probably where the lunch trigger first started as well, because I thought this is just going to be a bit of a pain. It was quite advertising led, if Savills or a Knight Frank or something was selling a country house in West Berkshire and were taking advertising, then I would write some puff about them in the property column about what a wonderful house it was. So that's sort of how I got into property, and then I can't remember which estate agent. Suddenly said, why don't you come out and see this house we got on the market, and we might pop out for some lunch. And sort of 8 hours later, I thought, I could get used to this. and that's, I think that's where sort of Sir Lunch-a-Lot was
where
born.
It came from.
Yeah, I think that's where it originated. I suddenly thought, do you know what? This property, this is quite good. And in all honesty, I really enjoyed it. And also, I wasn't a natural news hound. I almost think I was sort of too gentle and nice to knock on doors and be investigative and, look through people's bins. Not that you did that so much at local paper level, but I wanted to move on to nationals, and I realised that wasn't my calling, and actually it was property that got me into the nationals. I started freelancing on the property pages.
Right.
And then I actually kept hounding the rugby correspondent of the Daily Telegraph at the time. And again, I sort of followed him out to lunch at lunchtime and said, what I'd love to do is cover rugby. He gave me a game to cover, and that's where that took off. So I just kept the two in parallel of property and rugby, which is a lovely mix. And they're sort of joined at the hip anyway, aren't they?
Oh, very much. I mean, certainly rugby and sports generally in the property world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you've carved an amazing career. I mean, moving forward, I mean, when I say that you are the face of the property industry, which I think really does come from the Watthouse Awards.
Yes.
How many years have you been up on that stage?
Gosh, I think it's probably over 30 years.
Is it really? I remember being in the cheap seats on the, and the very first one, and really.
You've never been in the cheap
seats.
Well,
no, it was that day. I was paying. So I remember just being overawed by the amount of, you mentioned Steve Morgan, the legends of the industry, and we were just starting out in our company then, and I just remember and thinking, wow, and and I'm going back, and it still is the same today. It's an amazing show that you put on.
Yeah, we're delighted with the Blighty. I mean, it's, we're now, sort of 1,600 people at the Grosvenor House Hotel every year. The great, the good, and the very dangerous.
And the ugly.
I wasn't kidding. of the house building industry. Yeah, and it's a fantastic event. And actually, what I love, apart from the fact it's a great event in itself, I just love the fact that I think it has helped drive up standards. You get house builders who actually want to win awards, and when they're starting out on projects, I'll often hear them come to me and say, "We've got this site and whatever. We've got great plans. This is definitely an award entry." Yeah, so which means at least they're thinking that extra bit of quality to win, and it just brings the industry together. And as you know, it's such a fun industry, and it's a great social event. But it also, highlights the very best new homes in Britain and the great stuff that house builders do that doesn't get enough praise, in wider circles, which is
it leads on very nicely, and we haven't planned this, but it leads on. I mean, this is what this podcast is about, is because having been in it for over 40 years, everything you've just said, I think strikes a big nerve on me with the fact that we don't promote ourselves. We get tarnished with lots of things, and I agree with you. The awards, certainly, the standards in house building have improved over the years. Mm-hmm. But we don't look after ourselves. We don't praise ourselves. We don't let the public know what good we do.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, if I was to have to, this sounds awful, but if I was to have one regret, and this sounds incredibly self-important, but over those sort of 30 years in the industry, that we haven't driven up that sort of generic promotion of new homes, that we haven't changed attitudes amongst the public and politicians, everybody out there, you still get the negative feedback. I find is extraordinary. The lack of understanding of the industry's business model, I find extraordinary. It's almost like they're a very easy target, which frustrates. I'm not an apologist. There's plenty that do wrong, and there's plenty that needs to be done better. And I think because it is the biggest purchase, the most emotional purchase, it doesn't take much to go wrong for people to really cry. Yeah, and I totally get that. But in a wider context, I do get frustrated by the politicians, and even, dare I say it, some of the sort of national journalists who it's very easy to have a pop, and talk about land banking, which is nonsense, and stuff like that, and actually a recognition that, I mean, it's always a good news story, isn't it, if something goes wrong, and I get that.
Seems to be our media like that more today than ever before.
They certainly do, and it's I and you know them as well as I do. I just find that the people in the industry, for the most part, are driven, passionate, really care. Yes, they want to make money, but then who doesn't? What business does?
Absolutely. Well, why would anyone want to go to work and not make money?
Exactly.
That rather defeats the object. Although I'm doing a really good job at that at the moment, I've got to say. But just taking you back a step, just one of the questions. I mean, we're getting some amazing people, and you're a prime example. Come on the show. One of the questions that I asked: does the HBF, in your opinion, do enough to deal with the promotion of the house building industry? I personally find it's very good on stats and facts, but in your opinion, do they do enough to promote and bring the industry together?
Yes, they certainly do. The HBF, in terms of, I think they're a fantastic organisation, and Stuart Bazley at the helm is terrific. I think their issues, they have so many fights, so much on their plate politically, in terms of legislation, regulation, and the politics of housing, that I think that leaves them very little wiggle room to promote. And in fact, if I had, what I think is one of my sort of 3 wishes would be, how
you're going to get 3 in a minute. So you can waste one now. Not waste it. You can use it. We're not wasted. You can use it.
I'll use one. Yeah. Is that how can we create a real proper promotion of the industry from top to bottom? Not just occasionally. There's great initiatives like New Homes Week, but it does tend to be, they're more energy efficient. But it's the usual stuff. I think it actually needs industry leaders to come out from behind the sofa and shout a bit louder. I know they're worried about scaring the horses and the shareholders, but we've got some great people, great characters who can tell a great story, but are quite reluctant to. It's almost like, let's just keep quiet and carry on. I would love, a proper promotion, not in a puffy way, but actually that tells the story of house builders, the challenges and the opportunities, and also what they do beyond that, isn't it? Because it's very easy to have a pop at them, but the whole, what they bring to the economy as the engines of growth, the jobs they create, that society as well, great housing which leads to better health, all those things. That if you add all that up, the opportunity sort of for house builders to lead the way and get us back on our feet, get us healthy environment, get us productivity, get people, doing jobs they love. And that even goes back to, school, etc. as well. I mean, you still hear, I haven't seen the latest stats, but you still hear these sort of horror stories about, careers in schools. They've got, house building is nowhere to be seen. There's an assumption it's a dirty job on a building site. And which again reminds, I think of Steve Morgan again. It's often attributed to quite a few. So it's one of those apocryphal ones. But I certainly know it's true of Steve that I think as he got, and he won't mind me saying this, as he got kicked out of one of several schools he got kicked out of as a teenager, the head teacher turned to him and said, "Morgan, unless you pull your socks up, you'll end up working on a building site."
Oh, do you know what? I did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't pull my socks up at school, sadly, and I did end up labouring on them, and I've got some scars to show from it.
Yeah, it didn't do him much harm, did it?
Well, no, and after when that's a work ethic, isn't it? Well, that's another story. So going back to the industry, I know we had a little chat a few days back, but we are in an official recession. But they don't seem to mention that we have a housing crisis.
No.
And I appreciate we've got horrendous situations going on in Ukraine and in Israel, and I think, generally speaking, the world is a dark place in lots of ways. But I've not heard this Conservative government, in my opinion, the worst Conservative. I was, and I use the word was, a Conservative voter. I have been since I was 18. They won't be getting my tick. But they never seem to make reference to the house building industry or the construction industry, which, if you link the two together, could produce so much money in revenue for the Chancellor. Yet it just doesn't seem to hit the radar at the moment.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. It drives me actually, and you're right as well. I mean, I'm called Rupert. I've had no choice but to vote Tory all my life. But they don't get my vote. I don't know who does though. That's the other thing. But
that's the abstention column for me.
Absolutely. But you. I mean, dare I mention Michael Gove without the lights going out?
He's watching us. He's a very clever man. Evidently,
he is a very clever man. But again, I don't know. We did discuss this earlier about whether is it an age thing, but the ineptitude coupled with the arrogance of all politicians of
Absolutely.
all whatever their political persuasion, I just find it is so depressing, isn't it? Because I think the thing about the housing market is that you can solve it easily. There are the levers out there if you could only take it out of politics. I know that's an incredibly naive thing to say, but if you depoliticized housing and deliver the fall, you've got the capability, you've got the people to lead to do it. You could argue we'd need schools to push people into it because we've got a skills shortage crisis and ageing working population in terms of the construction industry. But actually, all the ability is there, and that is the massive frustration. Yet it's just used as this football time and time again. And Michael Gove is a classic case of it. I mean, was it last week? There's going to be a commission on why there's a housing shortage. I mean, is there going to be and then about sort of 2 days later, the HBF put out figures about sort of record low planning permissions. In fact, I think it was actually the Lib Dem conference last year, which I loved actually, I didn't go, but the young Liberals all arrived in T-shirts which just said build more bloody houses. And that is I say, all that needs to be done. But we have a system that throws barriers down left, right and centre.
And I think, it's interesting. We're our first season of Blighty Talks Bricks is done. This is his second season, and one of my guests a week or so ago was Sean Ellis.
Yeah,
and Sean made a really good point in the conversation, and this is what the podcast is about. I'm learning. I've been in this industry for 40 years. I'm learning, And we certainly don't talk together. The leaders, you're absolutely right, the leaders of the house builders need to be a little bit braver.
Yep.
Need to get their head from behind the sofa. You're absolutely, and the leaders are, generally speaking, they're all amazing people. They're lovely people as well. You know, yes, they're hard-nosed business people, but they're lovely people.
Yeah.
And Sean made the point that in defence of the politicians, I never thought I'd say this, in defence of the politicians.
I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah, I get that. But what he said was that in their inbox, we don't get a vote as the house building industry, but as individuals we do. And in the MP's inbox, there are probably not loads of messages saying, build more.
No.
It's the opposite. I mean, I think Nimbys, I think you use something at one of the what else? Bananas?
Oh, yes, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. Anyone? Yes, that's right. That's banana, isn't it?
And I thought that was a really good point, that actually the reason that we could be in this predicament, this problem, this crisis, is Middle England.
Yep.
Or if you want to say Middle UK, whereby we've all got a little bit selfish. I mean, you've only got to look at the civil service to see that situation.
Yep.
Well, I'm fine. My work-life balance is I can work from home one day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or in some cases, I'll go in one day a week. We're all sort of, I'm all right, Jack. Yet, until we change our attitude as Middle England, Middle UK, the MPs are just going to worry about their own positions.
You're so true. I mean, that's the eternal dilemma, isn't it? Because you've got, I mean, I don't think any politician, local or national, has ever knocked on the door of their constituents and say, you can count on me to build hundreds of new homes so that the young people in this parish can get on the housing ladder.
Absolutely.
They've never campaigned on the basis of building more new homes. It's stopping, isn't it? You see leaflets and there's stop signs. We'll make sure that new village on the outskirts doesn't get built. And yes, and quite often there might be perfectly valid reasons to challenge it around infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. But the crying need, I think I once used the analogy of that in a local village in Middle England, you could have the young people with their placards saying build more bloody houses, and as they come to the barricade, the opposition coming the other way saying no to houses in our village are their parents.
Oh yeah, no,
so going,
for sure.
Mum, Dad, what are you doing here?
For sure.
So at the one hand they're wondering why their 35-year-old son is still living in the attic. The next they're actually saying we don't want any new homes anywhere near us. But also I think another factor to play again is reputation, isn't it? There is an assumption that brand new is going to be boxy, soulless, etc.
For sure.
And some of it is, let's be fair.
And in the past it was. I mean, and you can still see that in certain areas now, but that comes because there isn't a dialogue, there isn't the support.
Yeah.
And normally anyone that's getting a big planning consent has gone through a terrible battle to get that, because it's the moment that it was mentioned, it started this problem. And then it was just fighting to get some kind of assent. But then it does come back to the industry needs to help itself to promote, because I get people talk to me and they say to me, oh, the trouble is, Blighty, when they build these big estates, they don't put in any facilities. And they do actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's only when you start, I know the stats and facts come out, but stats and facts that come out, Google, LinkedIn, wherever you think you see it, it would help it if it had a voice behind it.
Yes.
And I just hope Steve Morgan stays in the property world. I don't know him, never met him. Mm-hmm. I'd love him to come on this show.
Yep.
I don't know Stuart. I've never met Stuart.
Right.
But they're characters.
They would both make great
character, but they're characters. They're, God bless him, Tony Pidgley, someone that I think of a bit like my father most days. We need to keep these guys in the industry.
Yeah.
Because they're awe-inspiring individuals.
Absolutely.
It would be lovely to get Jenny Daly to come on. There's a woman that's punched her way up the career path to get in charge of the Taylor Wimpey organisation. If we had those voices talk about the facts and the stats, that would be so helpful. And I know for a fact that if Tony was alive, bless him, he would have been sitting in that chair.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because his passion.
Yeah. But I think you're right as well in terms of And in terms of the quality, again, because of planning, I think quite often, so house builders, they're competing for the land and for the planning. So you're not competing on quality. And I've said this expression so many times, but I think it's so opposite, is that house building must be one of the only industries where you're artificially deprived of your basic raw material, in this case being permissioned land. If you're Willy Wonka and you want to sell more chocolate, you buy more cocoa and you give it a go, and if you don't sell, you might go bust. I mean, there's this assumption that, I'm not advocating removing planning. You obviously need checks and balances, but people assume that if you remove planning that house builders are just going to build 1 million houses anywhere. No, they're not. But the whole planning environment, it's so under-resourced, it's so adversarial, isn't it? It's
very much so.
It's not a, in other countries, house builders are almost like, they're sort of champions because, they're the drivers of growth. They're creating homes, they're building stuff, which is great. Here, it's such a negative perception.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because, and when we had Peter Truscott on, Peter made a really good point I'd never thought of, was we get moaned at for house builders, keep building all these houses. He said, but people forget, we don't build people, we don't make human beings. They're already here. There's 70 million of us already here.
Yeah.
So where are they going to live?
Yeah.
We are, depends who you talk to, 3.5, 4 million short.
Yeah.
Where are our children's children going to go? I harp on about grandchildren purely and simply because I'm trying to register with everyone to say it's not just a legacy thing. A legacy thing can be a lovely thing to leave behind. You want to leave behind the fact that you've done this, that, t'other. But the legacy is important. But where are these people going to live?
Yeah. No,
and you mentioned it earlier, we become healthier.
Yeah.
We will become wealthier. The country will have money in it. It doesn't actually have to be houses for sale. It can be houses for rent. But we've got to find a way around it. So that's going to lead me on, because you've had one of your wishes, and I thought you used it very well.
Right.
You've got two. You've got the Blighty Bricks wand left. You've got 2 to go. What 2 wishes could you bring into play that you can bring into play, and I can put them into motion tomorrow?
God, it would need a magic wand. But actually, it probably leads on just what we're talking.
More than a magic wand.
God, it had to be Merlin and Gandalf rolled into one to even have a prayer. But I think it is planning, and it actually takes me back to where I started. I used to, on a Wednesday night, as a cub reporter, I had the job of covering Newbury District Council planning subcommittee meetings. Oh my God. It was democracy gone mad, that you had local councillors, obviously elected, but quite often not knowing one end of a brick from the other, or looking at the wrong plan, and they were making huge decisions in many cases,
massive decisions,
and the discussion, and you'd have some poor planning officer who's recommended it for approval, and then suddenly somebody pipes up at the back, going, I don't like the look of that, and it's because it might sort of blight the view of his horses from his backyard, that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm exaggerating to make the point, but it was just the merry-go-round was extraordinary. So I'm thinking, I don't see how it could be done, or do I? But if you can actually get professionals involved through every aspect of planning, and maybe even not that they're not local, because in a sense, this assumption that local people know best for the local community doesn't wash at all, because they're all Nimbys. If anything, they're the least likely to.
Well, they're happy with their lot, aren't they?
Well, they're happy. They've moved in there and they pull up the drawbridge.
Exactly that.
And particularly in rural areas, so it needs you need people who know what you're talking about in a very objective way, working closely with planning officers, cutting through the red tape. But the chances of that happening, I can't imagine. But that would certainly be one of my wishes. Is actually, how can you sort out the planning system? Yes, it needs resourcing, it needs money, and also I make it maybe more aspirational. I've never worked in planning. I'm sure but it could be quite exciting, couldn't it? If you're playing a part in creating new communities and finding homes for people, etc., rather than, as we said before, that adversarial nature of don't build here, build over there, and then build over there, build over there. So that would be my second one. Yeah. My third one, I probably have to start off by saying this is a joke, because I know thought police in this media age, I might get arrested for saying this.
Yep.
But what I'd like to see if we could is actually to bring Guy Fawkes back to life and give him another go.
Well, that's quite dramatical.
Well,
I get the sentiment.
Yeah,
I understand.
I don't think anyone's in there Blighty now for the. Well, I'm sure there are, and there are a few that I know that there are, because you can't tar every politician with the same brush. But again, back where we started, I think just the lack of understanding, the fact that it's so self-serving. How do you get the next generation in? Who would want to be a politician, to be fair? There's, under so much scrutiny, particularly in the social media world, how are we going to find the statespeople of tomorrow who really want to make a difference rather than just win the next election? It's that, it's just literally all about, that's why housing policy, it changes on a dime, Michael Gove, because it's suddenly thinking, oh my God, actually, I better get back on the side of house building because I want the youth vote. And then they go, but don't go too far the other way, because I still need Middle England votes.
Absolutely.
It's changes with the wind.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, when you think of the infrastructure, when you think of the problems we've got with the shortage, and then you look how many housing ministers we've had.
Yes.
I mean, we have written to Mr. Rowley, long-serving. Actually, you get a gold watch if you do 6 months, don't you? Is that right? Well, I mean, not only is he long-serving, but he did an apprenticeship for a little while before as well, before he got the job back.
He did.
I mean, how could anyone expect that to work?
I think is it 16 since
16 in
2010? Yeah. I mean, also it's interesting because, being in the media, every time one is appointed, this press release comes out with a quote from them. And I swear, if I went back, they're all the same quote about we are here to deliver the housing that the Great British public needs, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity. And then 5 minutes later,
they're somewhere else.
They're somewhere else. Yeah.
But, I mean, surely that is disrespectful to the people that actually live in Great Britain.
Yeah, totally. But again, it's. Can you imagine the opportunity? And again, I know it's naive. I know we live in it's these political cycles, isn't it, of 5 years? That's why it needs to be taken out of politics, and we need a 20, 30-year plan to sort out housing. I had a great chat with George Clark, the architect. He would be brilliant on this. So passionate, and he said that it's literally his life's. He will not rest until what he refers to as solving the effing housing crisis. And particularly around affordable housing and social housing. And it's, but what a legacy could leave if you give someone long enough to say, right, okay, this is my baby, this is my project. But then tapping into the great resource of people in this industry who could help them deliver. To actually leave that legacy, and you're never going to solve the problem.
You're never going to keep everyone happy, but you'll never keep everyone happy anyway.
No.
But it just seems to be that we're rudderless of leadership, and I think you're right. The point you make about MPs. I mean, why would you do it? I mean, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. A podcast is a social media element, but now people, the moment they start having an opinion or do something good, they'll get slaughtered.
Yeah.
And we are fragile things. We're not as strong as we think we are, and I'm primed to be a little bit fragile. But why would you want to put yourself out there to get dogs abuse? And also dogs abuse from people that actually haven't got the courage to actually name who they are.
No.
A keyboard warrior, we'll all come from the dark side and we'll slag you off, but you can't track them down, or they haven't even got the courage to actually sit there and say, I don't. And I think disagreement is a lovely thing. Yeah,
but you're not allowed. There's no middle ground, is there? You're either in that social media, either in my camp or not. You can't agree to disagree. You can't. Nobody ever says, I take your point, but it's literally bang. You're closed down if you don't agree with me. You're either a fascist or you're a racist or a socialist. There's nothing in between. And I think social media, it's done a lot of good. I think it's in a sense, and it has been given a voice to people who otherwise wouldn't. But equally, it's also given a voice to people who should never be allowed a voice. They are in the cellar, keyboard warrior, and they are the vitriol, as you say, that they would never say face-to-face or have the courage to say face-to-face. But it's so debilitating, isn't it? It's so that, I love all media, but the hypocrisy of social media is extraordinary. They're always having a pop at national media. I think, well, at least in my day, national media, you do have checks and balances. There's laws of libel, etc. Don't get me started on the social media companies and their complete lack of responsibility. They should be made publishers responsible for all content. I'm responsible for every word in Showhouse. I know that's a lot less words than appear in 10 seconds in a millisecond on social media, but tough. If you've got all that content, you need to employ 1 million sub-editors to make sure that nothing gets out that shouldn't. That's what you should do, because it's not a defence. Ignorance shouldn't be a defence saying, how can we stop it? It needs to be stopped.
It's a shame. I mean, the other situation is the employment law. That needs. I know a lot of people now, and I'm one of them. I'm, literally born in the sound of Bow Bells, round the corner. Growing up, the thought of employing people was so exciting to me. Yeah. I wanted to build a big business, and that's not happened. But and actually having people that you enjoy going to work with, and you can see that. I love writing commission checks out. Nothing gives me more pleasure. Mm-hmm. But employing people now, and another thing the great British public don't get is it can be a big liability now.
Yeah.
It's a one-way street, and I'm talking from experience here. Yeah. And again, I'm finding a lot of people saying, well, I could grow my business, but I don't want to. Well, if we're not careful, that employment law is going to lead to more unemployment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll just follow a couple of flowcharts. We've got nowhere to live, and we ain't got anywhere to go work.
Yeah.
What a great country this is. We're punching above our weight now, aren't we?
Well, I remember also someone said, and again, obviously not getting on the subject of the rights and wrongs of it, but I think when there was a few months ago, there was another sort of wave of COVID in some way, shape, or form. I think someone pointed out, said COVID's getting very specific. I don't know of anybody who's self-employed who's caught COVID. which and again, because it is that. In fact, a great friend of yours and mine, Bob Weston, I remember when we first got out of the first lockdown, we managed to grab a lunch, and he said, mark my words, he said, out of all this, productivity will absolutely sink.
Wow.
And that's exactly what's happened, and attitude to the work.
As you say, he's a good friend of both of us, and Bob reminds me in so many ways of Tony Pidgley, visionary, and I've worked closely with Bob for many, many years, and lots of things, some sadly bad, that he've said they have come true. Yeah. And productivity is on the floor.
Yeah.
And I'll debate that with anyone. I like a debate.
But you say the wrong thing, Blighty. That's the thing, isn't it? Because I can see us now. There's probably things we'd like to say around that, but then the moment you go too far, one gets cancelled, don't you? In terms of saying, and again, you can't tar everyone with the same brush. But that whole thing about a little bit more resilience, and I know that people have had a horrible time for various reasons and still do. But you need that. You need that resilience, and as you say, it all leads to: do I take the risk about employing someone who I think could be great, but are they coming in for the right reasons?
Absolutely.
And you have to be so careful. You can't. I mean, it goes back to my Newbury Weekly News days. I mean, editor would absolutely scream across the newsroom. And you might, as a young reporter, it wasn't quite sink or swim, but you realised, yes, okay, you probably had cocked up, and that was a way of, it was educating at the same time. But maybe, if you shouted now, what would be the repercussions of that? I don't know.
Well, and I think sadly, I've just watched a program on Netflix about Spitfires, and I think that the world that's out there today, particularly in this country, should really count its blessings that in the world wars that we had in the past, people did stuff for us to have a choice today.
Absolutely.
And they gave their lives up. Now we've got, I saw a thing the other day, our army's short of money, it's short of, they're thinking of bringing about national conscription. Good luck with that one.
Absolutely.
You can't even get people to pop into the office, let alone could you stand there with an RPG?
Yeah.
Where's that going?
Yeah, that's frightening.
But look, I know every time this is why I know I have long lunches with you, because every time we sit there, we chat, I can't believe where it goes, let alone there's probably had some nice wine with it. But
I was going to say, it's been great talking to you. I've never, usually there's moments of this and that.
That's why I've got these cards, because otherwise I'd be getting itchy. I just want to finish on a positive. One of the things the house building industry is fantastic for is giving in charities.
Yep.
And I know that you've been in and around charities, and you've seen lots of things from your clients and what you've been involved in. Is there a particular charity that's close to your heart?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's a couple. And I suppose there's a Chestnut Tree House, which is quite local to me in Sussex, which is a children's hospice, which does amazing things. And a great friend's daughter was cared for in her sort of final days there, and that's just an amazing place. And then I think anything around Alzheimer's, which is very much personal with my dear mum at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think
sorry to hear about that as well.
No, thank you.
My mum passed away with that, so I understand the pain that causes.
It's and then I suppose in that whole social care, gosh, that's another podcast, isn't it? But yeah, as you say, that I think the industry is fantastic in terms of its support for a range of charities, and obviously all homeless charities. There's a natural affinity, and again comes back to a frustration, because I think they know they can help. And the homelessness numbers are absolutely shocking. They've just only gone one way. So anything that, but it all links together though, doesn't it? Because if we can get the houses built, the shelter built, let's put it that way, it's more that at every tenure, every price range, and helping. I just think it'll make such a difference to everyone's lives, health and environment as well. I think environment follows on from that. So it's so frustrating, because it's such a great industry. And can I one line which I love, and I don't know who said it, because it's one of those anon quotes, which I think almost it sums up all the sort of self-serving issues of our time, is that someone said, and whoever it was, if you're out there, let me know, just think how much more would be done if no one gave a damn who got the credit. And I think that's a really true, because it's all about that was my idea, or putting up some new policy. If you just got on with it, and people just got on and did it, and weren't looking for the praise.
Well, as I said, you're an impressive writer, and that would have been a lovely quote written down. I had made the statement at the start.
Shall I say it's mine until I get challenged?
If you don't, then trust me, in the next podcast I'm actually saying it's mine, so I'd grab it if I was you. As I said at the start, and I meant every word, you're an amazing, lovely human being. I've always loved your company.
Thank you.
You do a great job for the industry, and I know the Watthouse Awards are an amazing event. You do really well to keep that in order, because I'm one of the people that's normally very noisy.
You're one of the few people who actually listens to me, though.
Well, no, I do listen. And people say that, I talk a lot, but trust me, I do listen as well. But no, seriously, Rupert, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Blighty Talks Bricks. We will catch up with another lunch soon. And I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to see you before, I'm sure, but I look forward to seeing you at the Watthouse Awards. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your words of wisdom. That's certainly going to be ringing around the industry. And thank you for your passion and what you give. Been an absolute pleasure, Rupert.
Thank you so much, Blighty.
Cheers, mate. Enjoyed your company.
Yeah, lovely.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me.
People, what can I say? Another episode comes to the end, and this man's nailed so many points. Look forward to seeing you next time round. Be safe. Take care.